Inside the Arena is presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook.
Welcome to Inside the Arena, your source for everything off the ice, off the court, and outside the field of play. With your hosts, KOMO Sports Director Niko and KOMO Senior Reporter Chris Daniels.
They're clapping again.
There's actually a lot of people out there today.
It's a very active newsroom here at KOMO News World Headquarters.
How you doing, Chris?
It's good. Well, I'm losing track of how many shows we've done.
34?
34?
Yeah.
And the Snoqualmie
X-Men?
Casino and Resorts?
Yeah. Shout out to the X-Man, 34.
34, yeah.
Yeah.
There are a lot of 34s.
There's a lot of good 34s.
A lot of good 51s, too.
Well played, sir.
Yeah.
I like that.
So we're gonna talk about what's good, what's bad in the world of sports off the court, off the ice, off the field of play. Something we do every week. But we have to tell people that in this show, you have a big interview.
Yeah, how about Jedd Fisch? Listen, we know we've done a lot of great Cougs content here. Obviously, Ann McCoy was on. We had the Cougar Collective. But, the Huskies are building something special as well. You look at that first year of Jedd Fisch as kind of a foundational year. I mean, everything was new, right? New AD, new president soon to be. Obviously, new coaches, new players all over the place. I mean, no longer do you have all these guys who are running along the NFL field this year, like Penix and Jalen McMillan and Rome Odunze, and the list goes on, even beyond those, so to speak, headliners out there, Jalen Polk at Eulafosio. So it was really cool to kind of take the year in review with Jedd, get to know him a little better, how he views this thing, how he feels embraced by Husky Nation, and how he's, of course, a little bit more in our wheelhouse, navigating this world of NIL. And how do you do that in this day and age where, remember, he was on record as saying Ohio State and Oregon have those $20 million rosters. Well, how does he anticipate not being left behind by schools like that? So a great conversation we can't wait to bring to everybody.
And he went from a school at Arizona that was actually on the other end of the spectrum, the NIL spectrum.
Yeah.
And he's now got more money to use at the University of Washington. Good conversation with Jedd Fisch coming up. But, again, what we do every week, we like to call this Four Corners, right? What's good? What's bad? Away from the field. We touch them all.
Yeah.
What's good this week?
You know what's good? Being in this studio. I got my drink. I'm with Daniels. I'm with producer Bill. I got my drink. I'm with Daniels. And Ichiro's in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
I mean, listen, it was the shoe-in. And here's the thing. I'm not saying anything outlandish. It hasn't been a good 2 decades to be a Mariners fan outside of a few moments. Moments generate, and certainly Ichiro's on that 0-1 team, and I know you have something on that, but it's cool when Mariners fans have these moments. Edgar getting in a few years ago was special. I was actually there in Cooperstown, and I saw him, not the induction day. I mean, I was there for that, but, as he was touring the Hall of Fame earlier, a few months out, and he saw Roberto Clemente's plaque, and he was just really taken by it. And I suspect that it'll be the same sort of thing with Ichiro, that it'll be a special opportunity. So it's great for Mariners fans, great for him. And, now, remember, it took a while for Edgar to get in. Now we're on Felix watch. I think he'll get in. It just may take some time. But right now, let's celebrate that Ichiro's in. We have something to celebrate this summer, hopefully in addition to the play on the field.
Well, I will tell you that Ichiro kind of transcends, I think, just getting into the Baseball Hall of Fame for people from Seattle who remember that point in time. And Niko, I was here and can tell you how just different it was for a Japanese player to come over across the water and be in Major League Baseball at a time when he was already considered a star in Japan, a guy who walked on water over there with the amount of attention he had. One little anecdote I'll tell you, Rebecca Hale, who was a longtime public relations director over at the Mariners, I can still remember walking around with her on then Safeco Field on the grass, and she was handing me her new business card. And she handed it to me and said, look, it's two-sided. And I looked at it, and on the one side, it was her information in English. On the other side, in Japanese. She said that was the amount of attention they were expecting to get on opening day of 2001. And then what happened that year.
Right.
With 116 wins, with the Mariners setting records at the gate and TV ratings. I mean, an absolute phenomenon. He's MVP in his rookie season. It is tough to really quantify just what he meant for that franchise over a decade. I mean, because of the amount of Japanese tourists that came into town, the amount of businesses in the Chinatown International District that benefited from the fact that Ichiro was good and the team was good. I think him getting inducted into the Hall of Fame is really one of those moments that you can really kind of pin a certain point in time on and what he meant for the Mariners in that decade. A lot like we think about, I think, Sean and Gary and the Sonics. I think you associate Ichiro with the Mariners and the early 2000s. Congratulations to him.
Yeah, and I bet you he'd still hit 220 if he played today. He's out there every Mariners game. He's, fielding balls in the outfield, giving guys lessons. I'm like, wow. And he looks great.
And it was fascinating, just his routine before games,
right? It's
which
still
people
doing
never saw, really.
Right.
The fact that he was out there before everybody else and there after everyone else, and really, I think we saw this in his Mariners induction. Really worked on his English over time, and really showed that off. I think to the large fan base just a year or so ago. Yeah, congratulations to him. I mean, he was a player, a transcendent player like no other.
Absolutely. Well said, Chris. And I can't wait for the summer. Cooperstown. It'll be great.
Well, another person who very positive this week, who got another award off the court, so to speak. Kelsey Plum, the Plum
awesome.
Dog. The former number 1 overall pick, getting her number lifted into the rafters over at, I still call it Heck Edmondson Pavilion, Alaska Airlines Arena at Heckhead or whatever it was. Nice little ceremony for Kelsey as she came back. Again, having another great year in the WNBA, and it's been interesting to watch the trajectory of her career, how she struggled a little bit as a rookie, and is now one of the top players in the WNBA, the University of Washington, now recognizing it, and she's the first. And I think anytime you're the first, you're the trendsetter. It carries more weight, and I think you can say this, Niko, that she really was truly honored at that attention that she received.
You saw it in her face, right? Yeah. It was special for everybody at UW, but really special. I mean, it's funny because sometimes we're in our little bubble here in town, right? And we see Kelsey doing great things in Vegas and winning championships that you almost forget how much this place still means to these people, right? And it's not just Kelsey, it's a lot of other folks. So to see that reaction, that was genuine, that was for real, and it was meaningful to all of us in Seattle. So really cool. Hoping more comes that way, both in retirements at UW from some awesome deserving athletes, but also success for Kelsey. Can be great to see.
What don't you like, though?
I thought about this, Chris. Okay. I'm a little bit of a rant, but not really. Like
you like the rants.
I like the rant, but here's the thing. So one of my pet peeves is criticizing an official from a standpoint. Okay, if you're talking youth sports or something like that, don't be that parent. You know what I'm saying? And my little guy's only 3, so he's not playing yet. But I'm going to strive to not be that parent. But there's also another part of me that sees what we saw in the NFL games in the divisional round. And again, these guys aren't perfect. I'm not knocking, you're a bad ref. But there were so many missed calls in key situations, and not just one team across the thing. At what point are we going to figure out the best solution? Because we're changing games here.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not knocking an official. It's a tough job. You got snow blown in your face like we saw in those games, and you're trying to make a call in a flash of a second. It's tough. I applaud Major League Baseball. One of the things I think they've gotten right is starting to trend towards the robot ump stuff. Like you've seen in AAA, you can actually challenge a ball on a strike. I think that's crazy. And then certainly they've come along. I mean, most sports have replay by now, but I think we need to keep going in that direction. This is not a rain on the parade of officials. I think they're all great at their jobs. It's just a really difficult job at that speed. And I think we need to, in 2025, really start looking at the technological options. And there's more and more every year to make sure everything's right and there's no more what ifs in these key moments.
By the way, I don't even know what targeting is anymore.
No.
In pro or college. That hit on Mahomes, I was like,
And then compared to Goff getting lit up.
Yeah.
It was night and day. And the one that should have been targeting wasn't. The one that was borderline was called. That's what I'm getting at, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm going to bring it down a notch for you.
Yeah, no, I know. This is tough.
Difficult situation, and I want to give you a little backstory first.
Yeah.
I'm a guy, as you know, Niko, that grew up in the area, and I watched Gus Williams play back in the day. with the Seattle Supersonics. And I had a chance to get to talk with him over the years at the Lenny Wilkens Foundation dinners. Every year, he would seek me and my wife out at these events, and we'd talk for a while. And I tell you, he has a megawatt smile that lit up that room, and genuinely nice, and wanted to stay in touch. And so it's tough to say that in February of 2020 he had a stroke. And I think a lot of people did not realize that.
Right.
And had been in assisted living for most of the last 5 years. And as you know, he has passed away. There is a difficult situation right now that I'm hoping that all the parties can resolve. You may be aware on this show that we have talked a lot about the Sonics Legends Fund and Sandy Gregory. She has been raising money for Gus and for Slick Watts, who both, Slick is also in having a tough time. She has raised money along with the NBA Legacy Fund to help pay for Gus's services and burial in New York. There is also another effort to raise money for the family through a GoFundMe for some of these. What the GoFundMe is, and the people behind it are saying is to help the family and to pay for all of these things that Gus needs for a proper burial. There appears to be some difficulty behind the scenes between these two sides, and I think I just wanted to say in this podcast, I hope that everybody can come to some common ground about who's going to pay for what, because really it is all about Gus and giving Gus a proper burial and a proper ceremony in New York State. And it seems like there's some people who have to do some talking right now.
Yeah. We wish them the best. It's such a tough situation just when you lose somebody, and now you've got everything you just described. So, yeah, we wish everybody the best in that regard. Chris, thanks for sharing that. I know you've been kind of on the ground and listening to everything that's happening in that front. So.
Yeah, I've been talking to a lot of people over the last several days, and it definitely feels like emotions are strong right now. A lot of people are trying to do the right thing, but it also seems like there's some old feelings that have been revived, and I just want Gus, as do others, to have a proper funeral and proper burial.
Yeah.
Not easy to transition out of that. Gus, as we have talked about, former Sonic, something that we do every week here is try to update people on the potential return of the Sonics. We usually use buzzers, but it doesn't feel right.
Yeah, no, we'll skip it for this week. I look forward to its return next week. What do you got for me, Chris?
Well, I think, again, talking to a lot of people over the last several days, it really does feel like the NBA needs to close the Celtics deal before they can move forward with expansion. As we have talked about a lot here, the Boston Celtics are for sale. David Bonderman, the late David Bonderman, also had a piece of that franchise. But the managing general partner is trying to sell the franchise as a whole. Could go for $5 to $6 billion, and the NBA wants to settle that first. Doesn't appear they're any closer to doing that. This has gone on now for several months. It's a big transaction. They're waiting on bids for that team, and once that gets done, it does sound like that will set the rate for an expansion franchise. Seattle and Vegas, of course. If you're going to sell a team for $6 billion, that may mean the expansion franchise fee is $4.5 or $5 billion. That's what we're waiting on right now. We will continue to update, though, on this show, which is what we do every week.
Yeah, that was my next question for you. What does that mean for the expansion fee? And, you know, I mentioned this every week because it was cool you were there. You know, Adam Silver said to you, we're going to address it this season. Are you worried at all that this delay, so to speak, it's not a delay, like you said, it's a big transaction. Are you concerned at all that it could push it past the season just because of the nature of these sorts of transactions?
That is a great question, Niko. And I'm getting the impression that this could drag on for a while.
Okay.
Because you have to announce who your buyer is. That all has to get approved by the NBA Board of Governors, the owners. I think that's why Silver went from saying we're going to address expansion in the fall to address expansion this season. Here we are now, January, almost into February. There's no deal announcement yet on the Celtics. We know that everything else has been settled in terms of the TV digital rights deal and all of that stuff, but this has continued to drag on, and this seems like the owners want to know how much money they're talking about with the Celtics and how much money they're going to ask for in an expansion.
Yeah, I went from thinking back when, after that initial fall thing started, I was like, okay, maybe about the All-Star game. That seems like an appropriate place. Now I'm thinking conference finals, like lottery pick.
End of the season is technically is April. Then you have the playoffs and through June.
Really, yeah. So that's my thing. Well, we'll see. Hopefully, it gets resolved sooner rather than later. So,
well, we will continue to talk about it on the show, and we continue every week to highlight at least one person who is a noteworthy person off the court, off the ice, off the field. Of course, Jedd Fisch is on the field, but he's got a lot that he's working on off the field.
Yeah, and one of the reasons I really wanted to talk to Jedd was from the standpoint that he's only been here a year, and that year, as you'll hear him describe, was just like an absolute whirlwind. And so people don't really know him that well. So we did like a little sidebar thing, like in addition, you won't see it in this interview, like, hey, what's your favorite movie? He's like, Top Gun, the original. And like, even just little things like that, like people seeing that little bit of personality, like, oh, I like this guy. And it's not that he wasn't likable, it's just that people don't know him very well. So that's why I wanted to talk to Jedd, and we get the whole thing of the state of UW football. Really fun conversation. We appreciate his time because it is, another kind of transfer portal kind of recruiting type season. So let's hear this conversation I had recently with Jedd Fisch. But first, of course, Inside the Arena is presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel.
Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sportsbook, is your place for a true in-game betting experience. Download the Snoqualmie Casino Sportsbook app to get in on the action while watching your favorite games at Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel. Details at snowcasino.com. Seattle's closest sportsbook, Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel.
A year ago this week, I'm sure it felt like it flew by with everything you had to do, but now that we're in the off season, so to speak, can you reflect on that? Wow, that was a long and a lot of accomplished in that year.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that we're celebrating the 1 year anniversary of getting here and being a part of University of Washington football and the University of Washington, period. But it certainly feels like now I'm able to look back and really reflect on what we did well, what we need to improve upon, and also have a little bit of time to figure out how are we going to get the program going in the direction we want. Last year, everything was such a race.
Right. Well, and that's my next two questions right there. Let's talk about the race first. I mean, we're not just talking about all the roster changes. We're talking about the new league. I don't have to tell you. How did you have to try and navigate that to get to the field in August? Because it's not that easy to do with all that new stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it was so unique. 44 scholarship players, no coaches. When I got here, we brought in our own strength staff. We brought in all of our own coaches. At this point in time, I didn't even have a defensive coordinator. I didn't have a safeties coach. We wound up didn't have a linebacker coach. Made those hires in February. We were going on the road recruiting while I was still meeting our team, trying to navigate a portal, that window that lasted another 30 days because of the coaching change. So there was just so much happening, and then you had to get ready for spring ball, and then you have personal things going on as well, and you're trying to move your family, and you're trying to take care of some things back at home. So the race really felt like it never ended, really until after the Sun Bowl. And then we've kind of taken this week after the Sun Bowl, kind of figure out life, and then now figure out a way to go compete.
I think a lot of people hear that, and even me, but we still don't have a grasp on how crazy that really is to navigate. Can you describe that whole process?
Yeah, I mean, it's almost impossible to describe exactly unless you're living through it. But, the goal here is to have 85 scholarship players. So when you only have 44, you have to find 40 players. You also have to keep players that we're considering leaving. You have to get players that you don't know much about. You have to hire staff, and you don't just hire on a first interview. You're trying to interview guys and bring in 4 or 5 guys in per position and trying to dedicate time there. We're traveling all over the country to bring players in. We're really working hard on selling who we are, telling the team that's here why they should believe in us, telling guys on other programs that were available why they should come here. And then also try to organize a system of academics, a system of doing things right off the field, a system of leadership, And when you're trying to put all that together in once, it's pretty challenging.
I bet. Given all that, you've gotten through it. How do you mentioned a minute ago trying to figure out the next step for this program? Now that you've had that maybe a couple days to breathe a little bit, well, what is that vision? What is that? I don't want to say goal because we all have the same goal, right? But what is that vision for that next step for this program?
Yeah, we talk a lot we've talked a lot this past week, is that it starts within. It starts within these walls, starts within the locker room, starts within right here, on how good do you want to get. And it starts with our culture. We have to become a more connected team. It starts with committing more to the daily grind, to be able to go out there and have your best, Saturday every Saturday. We talk about getting to know one another. How do you really build strong relationships so you're ready to fight for your brother next to you? We are going to have another 40 new players. So we're continuing to revamp our roster. We have our coaches all out on the road recruiting, starting tomorrow again. Today's a dead period, and then they'll be back out for the final 12 days of the month. So it's a constant churn. We're hiring new coaches. We brought in a new defensive coordinator. And as we're continuing to change the program, we believe we're improving, and we're excited about it.
Me personally, I was struck, and one of the reasons I'm really excited to talk to you about today, I was struck by the way you guys rallied at the end. You got the win you needed for the bowl game. Things started coming together. Listen, every coach wants to win every game, right? But how that effort to come together at the end, how proud did that get you, especially after everything you had to kind of weather through that we just talked about?
Yeah, I mean, you get a new conference, you don't really know the opponents very well. You got a new team, they don't know each other very well, and now you have a chance to go beat Michigan early in the year, and then the second half of the year to beat USC, to beat UCLA to get to a bowl game, to go down 14 points in the bowl game, and then have a chance to win it with 1 second left or 7 seconds left. Play with a freshman. So as we were evolving as a program, we were evolving as a team, we were beginning to buy more and more into what we were trying to get done. And as that was happening, I feel good about where we can go. We all want to win more, but there's so much more to it than that in year one, and building the foundation of where we want to be was really important.
I wanted to say, when it comes to the bowl game, I don't think I've ever seen a program that maybe fell short in the bowl game with this much optimism after it from their fan base. And you kind of touched on why a second ago, but do you feel that as well? That, it was a nice rally, but there was a lot of things that really, this is what the future, at least from the outside perspective, it felt like, this is what this thing can be going forward.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I felt great about the fact, obviously, for DeMond's second start ever to have 5 touchdowns, 4 in the air, 1 on the ground. Jonah Coleman and Adam Muhammad and Jordan Washington all playing, all coming back next year. Denzel Boston not being able to play the second half of the game, or the fourth quarter of the game, but the amount of production we've gotten from Denzel, having him as a key part for next year. The fact that Decker DeGraff continues to make plays, and yet we brought in, we also have Quentin Moore coming back, and Ken Eldridge coming in, and you start looking at the offensive line. Max McCree had his first return back after 5 weeks, and the youth out there, Landon Hatchett played his first game ever at center. That's all just on the offensive side. On the defensive side, what we're able to get done and what we plan on getting done with Ward and Durfee and Davis, and then bringing in guys with Price Sock and Takario Davis on the perimeter, and McKell coming back, and Vince Holmes. I just feel like we have a really, really good team right now that wants to be good. We've added a lot of parts. We've added a lot of people. We also have a ton of freshmen. And we're excited. We got a 20-game win streak. We got to continue to sell out, and then we got to go on the road and start getting some wins.
It's a heck of a foundation, right? Like, that's got to be something you can sell on the road, and not even something you sell, they can see it, right? Like, that's pretty evident to them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody sees, the success we have at home. It's the second longest home win streak behind Georgia. We got challenges ahead of us next year in all those games, but we also have to win on the road. We also have to find ways to get some of those tough wins. And, the best way to win on the road is bring a good team. And I think we have a good team. And I'm really excited about being able to take that team to some of those places next year.
We talked about DeMond a minute ago, and he's one guy in a team of 40, soon to be 85. But, the way he showed that leadership at the end for QB1, I mean, you're smiling at that. Describe
he's
that.
one guy, but he's the quarterback. So there is a difference. And that quarterback, obviously, is how he goes is how the team will go. How he plays will be how the team plays. And his ability to lead. The emotion he showed after the game told me how much he was committed. The desire to get back out here and throw and lift and run already. The intelligence that he has to be able to see what he saw. He only had 8 quarters as a starting quarterback, right? And those 8 quarters, he evolved each quarter. He talked more and more and more about what to do and how to get better. So altogether, yeah, I have a great enthusiasm, and I'm very encouraged about him as well as the rest of our team.
One of my favorite things that you said last year, and you said a lot of cool things, obviously, but you said NFL over NIL, more important. I'm curious to how that kind of helped with the identity of the program, but also how that was, based on your recruiting class, it seems like it was well received, but how that's received when you go into a living room and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because NIL matters, and, guys want to get paid, and guys are seeing other guys get paid, and, everybody compares, no one. It's all perfect to say everybody's intrinsically motivated, not worried about money, not worried about what others are making, but that's not really the world we're in. So, yeah, I believe that we can develop players. I believe we can coach players to be at the highest level, to understand what it's going to take to win. On the same token, we got to pay players to be competitive in this market. So, yes, we do sell the NFL far more than NIL. We spend a lot less time talking about money than a lot of programs I know. We spend a lot more time talking about the NFL than a lot of programs I know. But on the same token, in the end, that decision is going to come down to finances for the kids and their families, as well as football. And we've got to make sure that they understand the value of both.
And certainly the hope is that there's regulation coming down the line. But how do you navigate this NIL world, which is just kind of like the wild, wild west at this point, where every program's kind of got a different thing as to what they can do?
Yeah, I mean, I would guess that this will be the last year that will be living in a world of crazy, where people can front load contracts and people can say, hey, we're going to pay all this money up front and then use our revenue share dollars because we're going to circumvent the system. I think that's going to be over soon. And I think we're going to be able to start looking at what's the practical and appropriate way to compensate your players to bring revenue to your program. That is the idea here. The reason why we're paying them is because we're all making money because of them. But it's not about just passing the hat and seeing how much you can get. And I hope we can get to the point where we have a regulated system where everybody receives the appropriate number.
1 year in, how do you feel embraced by Husky Nation, and how it's gone in that respect, being out in our community and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I'm 50% embraced. I'm embraced after every win. No, I think it's been great. I love it here. My family and I are so excited to really have a year where now, we could turn the page. We got to a bowl game. We were able to do some things that were cool in the Big Ten. We were able to have the first ever Big Ten home game and win the game. We were able to beat the team that beat the team in the national championship. We were able to beat SC and UCLA. We were able to take care of business in some regards, but there's a lot of work that still has to be done. Off the field, we're so excited to be a part of this community, to be a part of this program, and really we need to be more involved. We need to be more active out there. I'm excited for our players, our family, our staff to really be a part of Seattle.
And that's just it. Seattle sports in general went over such turnover in 2024. Seahawks, Mariners, Kraken, yourself, all new coaches here. What does it mean you can be a part of that stability, hopefully, for a while to come for sports fans here in town? Yeah,
that's the plan. The plan is that it's a familiar face out there. And we need more of that. I know Coach McDonald believes the same thing I do over in Seattle, and they've done a great job as well. He did a great job in his first year. So we're both excited about next year, but on the same token, we're good to have that little bit of a break to get it going.
Is there like a relationship with you guys that's coming into?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Coach. I'm a big fan of how he does things over there. I think he's one of the best defensive coaches there is. Clearly, he did a great job as a head football coach in that league. It's so hard to win. And I just admire him from afar, and fortunate enough to have a relationship with him as well.
I suspect a lot of dogs will be watching because we're airing this tonight, and it's right after President Biden's farewell address. So there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on it. So I want to give you an opportunity. A lot of dogs out there watching. What's your message to them after they've heard this conversation about the vision? Anything you want to say to them, I suppose.
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that we're very fortunate. We're very fortunate to all be Huskies, and we're very fortunate to be in the Big Ten. And with the Big Ten, there are obstacles and there's challenges and there's all the issues that come into national travel and going against some of the biggest programs in the country. But we're so happy to be a part of this, and we want the biggest investment we can make from the community. Come to the games, cheer on the team, be a big fan of the program. And as their fans, more players want to come here, more players want to be embraced, more players want to use our community to our advantage, and we've got the greatest community. Let's take advantage of it.
Yeah, how about that, Jedd Fisch? I really enjoyed that conversation. I learned a lot about him, the vision, and I was really intrigued by the NIL conversation from the standpoint of what he expects to maybe hopefully come down the line. A lot of interesting things there, and appreciate his time. And I had a lot of fun in that conversation.
The last year of crazy.
Yeah, right? I mean,
are we sure about that? Because it seems like it just gets crazier every year.
I mean, I think he hopes that's the case. Yeah. And maybe it is. I mean, we keep hearing like later this summer, whatever congressional thing is coming down the line, but you never know. And I just feel like we've had this conversation, college athletics, some of these presidents, man, maybe not so much around our neck of the woods, but in other parts of the country, they always seem to find a way to circumvent some of these rules, whether it was some of the programs we've seen paying players back when it was illegal to pay players and whatever. There's always going to be something. And so maybe you get some regulation, you get this going, but what's going to be the next thing? I don't know what that is, but at any rate, we appreciate Jedd Fisch's time.
Well, the next thing, it's our final thing. It's the thing
The buzzer worked.
The buzzer worked.
I love it.
Bill's fixed the buzzer.
We should play the buzzer every time Bill comes into work.
Final thoughts?
Yeah, I think that we talked about last week, obviously, with Beth Naxam, Seattle Sports Star of the Year Awards. And I just reflect on some of those nominees, whether it's Best Male Athlete, Best Female Athlete, Best Story, and it's like, wow, this is pretty cool. You can, go to the Seattle Sports Commission's website. You can vote on that through next week. And, of course, the ceremony itself is at the Summit, February 27th. We can't wait for that. And, gosh, it's funny? Like, it crossed my mind for a split second, but like, let's do a prediction segment. Me and Chris will predict who's going to win. But, I don't want to predict because there's so many, great stars that are up here. I mean, look at the men's category. You got Cal Raleigh, Leonard Williams, Albert Rusnak. You've got the best sports story here, that crazy New Year's Day of 24 with the Winter Classic and the Sugar Bowl, or Jessica Campbell's awesome rise with the Kraken. I mean, it really just makes you appreciative of all the cool things we have here in Seattle sports.
Well, one of the other cool things I just wanted to show you real quick.
Please.
I was at the Whole Foods picking up my organic eggs and bagels, and I looked down in the check stand, Seattle Magazine, most influential issue.
Oh, look at that.
Friend of the program, Peter Tomazawa, who is the CEO of the World Cup Organizing Committee here in Seattle. He is front and center, most influential, looking good there on the cover of the magazine.
He's got a busy couple of years.
Oh, yeah, he's got a busy couple of years. That's a story that we've continued to chronicle here on Inside the Arena, and we're going to talk about it a lot in the months to come.
David Lee, it's that time.
You've been listening to Inside the Arena with Niko and Chris. Please subscribe on your favorite platform. Until next time.
Inside the Arena was presented by Snoqualmie Casino and Hotel, Seattle's closest sports book.